Well, it's week 3, and we have a few monumental matchups between several of the best teams in the NFL this weekend and the Kansas City Chiefs, but we'll get to them later. EJ, how are you?
I'm good. I guess I'm glad I'm not a Chiefs fan after that intro, but truth hurts, and we will talk about some of those pain points for the Chiefs.
We have a lot to get to today. 4 games we're diving deep into. Houston and Jacksonville. Houston's first game against an actual AFC opponent, which, by the way, I'm not saying Houston's one of the best teams in the AFC. Not even close. Trust me. Jacksonville could be, though, if they just clean up a couple things, and we'll also dive into that today, ideally without Jags Twitter getting upset at me again, even though I think I'm right. We're talking Rams-Eagles, 2 NFC heavyweights going at it. Baltimore-Detroit, 2 NFL heavyweights going at it. And then Giants-KC, 2 0-2 teams meeting on Sunday to ideally try to rescue their seasons. So before we get into it, Neil, please roll the intro. Welcome to the Bootleg Football Podcast. I'm Brett Coleman. That's EJ Snyder. A lot of good football to talk about. Yes, I understand our week 2 recap show hit late. I apologize. My power was out on Monday, so everything kind of shifted back by 36 hours or so. So a little bit of a compressed schedule this week. As a result, by the time we're recording this episode, which is now, we still haven't posted the first one, so I don't actually have results from Shot of the Week. So we're actually doing our Shot of the Week shot next Monday, or Tuesday, I guess, when the Week 3 recap. Basically what I'm saying is we're doing 2 shots next week, folks. So if you want to vote on Shot of the Week, that's available over on the Patreon. It's a public poll. You can find that at the link in the description below. All that news and notes out of the way. EJ, how are you?
I'm good. We're mortgaging alcohol into the next week. I can just count on, a present tomorrow. I'll gladly pay you for a hamburger. I'll gladly pay you on Tuesday for a hamburger today. I'll gladly pay you for a shot now.
I thought about making it up to the people by having my shot be absinthe, but then I realized I'm out of absinthe and I breathed a sigh of relief. So
lucky boy.
So yeah, we'll do 2. There was a lot that happened this weekend. It's impossible to get to all of it. Falcons fans have been screaming at us, please talk about the fact that we have a pass rush. I wish I could say that would be the topic of today's show. It's not. We will get to it, I promise. They have been extremely impressive on defense. That will probably have to go into the Week 3 recap show. We hit on the Saints, we hit on the Cardinals, we hit on the Panthers, we hit on the Niners, we hit on all these teams that we haven't talked about a whole lot this season in the last episode. So if you're a fan of one of those teams, make sure you check that out. Today we are circling back to a lot of the heavy hitters. Is there a particular game, EJ, that you want to start with?
Ooh, I think there's fun storylines in all of them. I think in terms of the difference in perception from 3 weeks ago to now, I think Giants-Chiefs might be the largest disparity between what people thought that game was going to be before the season started and now at the dawn of week 3 looking at it and going, maybe it's a little bit different than we thought it was going to be.
So why don't we start with that one then? And, you have your notes, I have my notes. We obviously haven't looked at each other's notes, so who knows? There's might be some overlap here. Why don't we start with top-down macro view of the game, and then we can kind of diverge into little micro sections as we get to them.
Fair enough. I think this is going to be a much closer contest than a lot of people thought 3 weeks ago. Giants defensive line is going to be a severe test, and I will say another severe test for Kansas City. They went against the Chargers and the Eagles already. That is a brutal opening stretch to then follow it up with the Giants, but I guess they're kind of used to it. They've already got their calluses, but bad news is it's not getting any easier this week against one of, if not the top defensive lines in the entire league. The rushing game's been decent, but not great, and that's been a Kansas City staple for a few years. That's nothing new in Kansas City, middle of the pack rushing attack. but the passing game is 20th in yards per attempt. And they, with all the holes in their wide receiver room and Rashee Rice being suspended, they just haven't really found an alpha in his absence, a go-to person that they can just say, hey, we got to have this third down. We got to have this fourth quarter reception to keep the drive going. So the rushing game is as it's been, but they've usually had somebody to toss it to, and they haven't quite figured out that pecking order. And on top of that, the protection hasn't been great from the offensive line. Offensive line has been struggling, to say the least. Mahomes has been, the nice way to say it is on the move, but the not so nice way to say it is running for his life more often than he would like, and been having to do the lion's share of the offense himself. He's the leading rusher on the team. He's picking up the most first downs with his legs, and that's great that he has the ability to do that. The bad part is that he has to, and trying to hold up to that load over the entire season is probably not a recipe for success. So Kansas City trying to iron some things out, and the defensive line across from them is not going to do them any favors for that this week.
Yeah, knockdown percentage allowed on that Chiefs offensive line of 10.7%. That is the 9th highest in the NFL so far this year, even with Mahomes, getting out of the pocket and, making stuff with his legs. It's maybe underwhelming isn't the right word for it, but, when you have one of the best center guard duos in the NFL with Creed and Trey, Josh Simmons, who had all the hype in the world in the summer. And I do think that Simmons has played well overall, especially for a rookie left tackle. But part of me wonders, and I was messaging with the KCSN guys about this after week 1. I was like, maybe part of the Josh Simmons hype was that the Chiefs pass rush is just so ass that they made him look unbeatable in training camp. They're like, yeah, that was probably a little bit of it. Now, overall, I think he's played well. But now that he's playing against non-Chiefs pass rushes, we have seen him take a couple quick losses there. So yeah, offensive line needs to play better for the Chiefs. They need to get some kind of run game going, like at all. That would be nice. They don't really have a great running back room. Pacheco has never really been the same since coming off that broken leg. It was like 18 months ago, something like that. And Kareem Hunt, I heard a wild stat that I got to double check to make sure it's true, but it came from Nick Wright, so I assume it's true because he's a big Chiefs guy. Kareem Hunt has not had an explosive run since rejoining the Chiefs, which sounds crazy, but also now that I think about it, like all of Kareem's biggest impact plays are like 3rd and 1, and he gets you 3. So I'm like, wow. So they really have nothing explosive out of the backfield. And then you don't have Worthy. You don't have Rice, obviously. You have Travis trying to carry the passing game on his back again, but again, we're talking about mid-30s tight end. It's a recipe for disaster offensively, which is what this offense has been. And then when you factor in the real storyline that I don't think people are even talking about as much as they probably should, Mahomes has not been accurate, like at all. A big theme of today that you're going to hear a lot is off-target incompletions. And we're going to talk about it a lot in the Houston-Jacksonville game. And I have been very critical of Trevor Lawrence for having 8 off-target incompletions so far this year, which is 7th most in the NFL. That is half of what Mahomes has had. He's had 15. Like, that is disgusting, especially by Patrick Mahomes standards. I want to say a couple years ago, he had like 30 for the entire year. He's already at like half his quota after 2 weeks. So he has not been accurate. The receivers have not been dynamic because their most dynamic receivers are not on the field. They don't have a run game. Protection hasn't been great. Like, the fact that they were even in position to potentially win in week 1 and the fact that they were even in a position to potentially win in week 2 is a credit both to, I think, Mahomes' legs as well as, how well this defense played in week 2. But man, it just feels like this isn't a good football team. And that's shocking for me to say about the Kansas City Chiefs, but like, what are they good at right now other than Mahomes scrambling and them stopping the run, I don't know what else they're actually good at.
They're not great at anything, and that is unfamiliar territory. They have certainly had, they struggled at the beginning of last year, and this sounds a little bit like a repeat of that with different issues, mind you, but it was the same thing. They're not playing up to potential, but they were winning last year. Here they're 0-2. If they go to 0-3, which is a possibility against a very plucky Giants team, again, their chances of making the playoffs goes to 2%. Like since 1990, it's 4 of 200 and something like 68 teams. I don't have the exact number, but it's 2%. You dropped at 2%. 4 teams have done that since 1990, gone to 0-3 and made the playoffs. So it's a significant game. All games on the schedule in a 17-game schedule are pretty significant, but they do need to get it together. And yeah, if I'm the Kansas City, brain trust, I'm all right, what are we going to lean on against a potentially tough Giants team? And other than Patrick Mahomes running for first downs, there's not a lot they can say, oh, we're going to lean on that and we're going to get it done. When you talk about the off-target, incompletions, there was the one last week to Tyquan Thornton that I put out a tweet about because, we'd seen enough of them. And Tyquan Thornton was, pardon my French, wide ass open. He was completely uncovered. It was not going to be a contested catch if he made it in any possible way. And Mahomes overthrew him by like 2-3 yards. It was way over his head. And he was really open. And that's not something that we've seen, especially not from Mahomes. And the rate of that is alarming. He's going to have to dial that in. I'm not saying he can't. He is still a very good football player. He didn't forget how to do it. But over the first 2 weeks, I think the cumulative effect of all the scrambling, all the offense breaking down, the run game being nothing more than average. Again, you need 1, you get 3. That's an average run game. That is not an explosive run game or a run game that's going to carry you when things get rough. And it hasn't had to in the past because Mahomes in that passing game was going to come up with a play. Now, we've seen lots of different iterations from that, all the way back from the Tyreek offense. Then it changed to the sort of more dink and dunk. And then Rashee Rice came, turned into a Yak King. We've seen them get it done with Travis and multiple other players. And they're not getting it done, and the run game's just kind of the way it has been for 2 or 3 years now, and that's not good enough. And the combination means they're not winning games early in the season, and if they stack up 3 losses, there's going to be some alarm bells, and rightfully so.
Just for context, I want to read off the bottom 7 in off-target incompletions. Well, really, there's a bunch of teams tied at 7. So you got Trevor at 8. Right? That's not good. Ideally, you want to average, like top quarterbacks average, 1 off-target incompletion per half. Trevor at 1 per quarter, not ideal. He has to get better there. Drake May's at 9. He had a fairly rough week 1, so that's not surprising, even though he had a bounce back week 2. Bryce Young is also at 9. He's had his struggles so far this year. Jaden Daniels had a really rough week 2. He's also at 9. CJ Stroud had 7 in week 2 alone. He was disastrous last week. He's at 10 overall in the year. Caleb, everybody's bagging on Caleb's accuracy. He's at 13. He's the second most, and then you got Mahomes at 15. So none of those numbers are good, but the fact that the 7th worst in the NFL is only half as bad as Mahomes has been as far as being on target, that's the chasm we're talking about here, where the worst is 50% worse than the 3rd worst. So again, it's Patrick Mahomes. I have to have faith it's going to get better, but they have no margin for error at this point. We're 2 weeks into the year and they have no margin for error. And it felt like last season it was the exact opposite. They had every bounce go their way, every break go their way. They won a whole bunch of 1-possession games in a row. I'm pretty sure they set the NFL record for winning 1-possession games in a row. And this year, it's kind of flipped on its head, and the popular term is regression to the mean. They're regressing pretty damn hard to the mean right now, and now they're getting nothing going their way, and they can't buy a win. So, am I confident that they're going to be able to beat the Giants? No, I'm really not, because there's a lot of stuff I can hang my hat on if I'm the Giants. I have a pass rush on paper. Like, they didn't play very well against Dallas, but still, like, on paper, I have a pass rush with the Giants. I have a dynamic, explosive wide receiver duo with Malik Neighbors especially, but Wan'Dale Robinson also has his share of explosive plays. He's not just getting 7 catches for 10 yards anymore. I have a really fun young running back duo in Cam Scatabo and Tyrone Tracy, both of which are pretty hard to tackle. And Russell Wilson, for whatever reason, last week decided with Jackson Dart pushing him for snaps, was like, you know what, I'm just going to throw it 20 yards down the field every single play and see what happens. And he threw for 450. So if the Giants are getting as many explosive plays, or even like half as many explosive plays this week as they were last week, like, do you have any confidence whatsoever the Chiefs can keep up with that blow for blow? Me personally, not really. Because even with the Giants having pass protection issues, the Chiefs have the 3rd worst pass rush win rate among all defensive lines. They're barely above the Saints, who can't get pressure at all. So, like, Russ is going to have time. And if you have Russ with time and these outside corners for the Chiefs who can't honestly cover, McDuffie's like the only one they got. Like, I don't think they can match up with Malik Neighbors outside. So, like, it's not a good matchup. Like, I'm sorry, it's really not.
It's sneaky bad for the Chiefs. And yeah, I'm not sure which Russell Wilson we're going to get, whether it's the week 1 kind of fits and starts Russ, or the screw it, I'm going to bomb it down the field Russ in week 2 that went for his 2nd highest passing total in his entire career, 200 starts. And that's his 2nd highest passing total output. You got Malik Neighbors. Wan'Dale Robinson deserves his flowers. He's got the same number of receptions and only 40 less total yards over the season than a guy like Malik, who we rightfully have been fawning over, who has been the number 1 target there for the Giants. Having a true compliment to him makes them very dangerous. And then you kind of look in the middle of that Chiefs secondary. You're talking about the corners, but I'm going to talk about the safeties. Jaden Hicks, 5 receptions on 7 targets and 2 touchdowns of those 5. 133.9 NFL passer rating when targeted. Not great. And Shamari Connor, targeted 10 times, allowed 10 receptions. That is an NFL passer rating of 117.9. So there's a lot of people you can pick on in the Chiefs secondary, and a lot of people the Giants can throw to. And if you do shut down the passing game for some reason, oh yeah, they can still run it with that very fun running back duo. It's, that's not great. That's why I'm saying I think this game is a lot closer than a lot of people thought it would be 3 weeks ago. And I would not be at all surprised to see the Giants play a solid, steady game and come out with a close victory in this one, which I don't think anybody would have predicted at the start of the season.
As far as building this underdog entry as we go, speaking of Wan'Dale, our first piece of the entry is Wan'Dale higher than 44.5 receiving, which, again, if you've been watching the Giants so far this year, and if you've been watching the Chiefs DBs so far this year, keep in mind Christian Fulton got dinged up last week as well. 44.5, that's like 3 catches for him. So I feel fairly confident about that.
It seems like stealing to me, especially after watching him last week and saying, man, he's pretty much matching Malik Neighbors blow for blow. It's one of those great sort of, we call them shadow performances, where everybody's concentrating on Malik because of his draft status. And Wan'Dale's been a favorite of Brian Dable for the last couple of years. But like you said, the production in terms of yardage and impact hasn't really been there. The catches, he's getting lots of catches, but not for that many yards. This year, both of those dials got cranked up, and he is right there. And that is a big development for this Giants offense that's been looking for a very competent, capable number 2. They've tried to draft for it. They've tried to sign in free agency for it. And, those guys have been okay, but nobody's had the kind of impact that Wan'Dale's had over these first 2 weeks. If he keeps it up, this is a much more dangerous and diverse offense.
Do you have a pick for this game?
Oh, I'm going to pick Giants. I feel like the Chiefs' issues are running pretty deep, and as much as I can see them bouncing back and going, yeah, you shouldn't have picked against us, it does feel a little bit different than last year. Last year there were issues, but they were still winning. They were still finding a way, and we were saying, look, they just wait for other teams to make mistakes and then they pounce. It doesn't feel like they can do that this year. It doesn't feel like they can wait. They're making enough of their own mistakes that they're not in a position to be even when that happens and then just be the very experienced, grizzled veteran team that is just calm beneath the surface and allows that win to happen, which is what it feels like they've been able to do for the past couple of years. This team doesn't feel like that.
I'll pick the Chiefs simply because the matchup is so not good for them, and it wouldn't make sense that they're going to win, which is the exact kind of game that they win. It doesn't sound logical, but this has never been a logical team.
Correct.
So I'll pick the Chiefs because it's almost like they have the Giants right where they want them, right? Where it's like, yeah, nobody believes in us, even though we just went to like 3 straight Super Bowls. But I mean, kind of, yeah, like nobody believes in them. And when nobody believes in the Chiefs, they tend to play better for whatever reason. It's just call it dark magic. So I'll pick them. But boy, if they don't win this one, all bets are off. Like I can't consciously favor them at all then at that point until Worthy and Rice are healthy or back and healthy respectively. So next game on the docket, 2 other contending teams who actually are 2-0 and starting off the season on the right foot. Eagles Rams playoff rematch. My top line thoughts on this game are the Eagles are not playing as well as we know they can, and I don't want to use the word ugly. It's been methodical.
Feels downright Chiefs-like from last year, right?
It does, right?
They're winning games, but you're like, they could do better.
They could do better, which is why, a lot of people are burying them right now, and they're like, oh my God, they can't throw the ball. And it's like, it's not that they can't throw the ball. It's more so that they haven't had to throw the ball. And so I still think that this is one of the 3 best teams in the NFC because they're probably only playing at like 70% as well as they could. And we know what it looks like when they're playing at even 90, 95%, let alone 100%. So like, I still think they're going to be fine, but the fact that they're 2-0 while kind of working through their issues is a compliment to them. And then the Rams on the other side are also 2-0 despite being incredibly banged up, which is an upgrade from last year where they were incredibly banged up and started 1-4. So they've done a better job this year of kind of working through their injury issues, which is like 80% of their offensive line has gotten dinged so far this year. Puka has gotten banged up a little bit. Luckily, he's played through it, including a big old gash on his eye. And they've already sustained some key injuries on defense, like Akello's on IR. So like this team is not healthy whatsoever, but they've still, taken care of business and gone 2-0. And especially they gutted out a really, really tough win against a Houston team that also matches up well with them. So I think the Rams are underrated. And I think people are also panicking a little bit too much about the Eagles. Ultimately, these 2 teams are still going to be there in January. I really do believe that. And they're probably going to play against each other again in January. So this is a good early season benchmark for both of them.
I believe that to be true. And one of my favorite things about the Rams under Sean McVay is that they evolve. They always change. They don't necessarily win in the same way, and they don't expect to. They come out with different approaches and make them work. And he's done that over and over again. Crazy stat right now, the NFC West is the only division in football to have multiple 2-win teams right now, and they have 3 of them. Every other division has only 1 2-win team.
That's right. I keep forgetting the Niners are 2-0. It doesn't feel like it, but they
does
are.
Not. It does not feel like it. So last year, the power conference was the NFC North. Maybe it's the NFC West this year, but that's just a random one for 2 weeks in to look down and go, oh, 3 2-win teams in one division and no more than 1 in any other? All right. So much for Stafford being on his last legs. This storyline's probably well and done by now, but the Rams are passing for more yards per game than they did last year. 257 this year, 229 last year per game. And Puka, again, as you mentioned, he's number 1 in receptions, tied for 9th in targets, 4th in yards, 11th in yak, and yes, the absolute alpha in that offense. And he blocks his ass off, which is one of my favorite qualities for a wide receiver. I think on defense, the biggest change has been scoring defense. Again, it's only 2 weeks in, and yes, one of these games was against Tennessee, but the Rams are allowing a full TD less per game. 14 points per game this year, 22.3 last year. That's big news because if the Rams only need 1 touchdown per half plus a field goal to win, this team's going to win a lot of games under Sean McVay. So I think the Rams are a very solid team, 1, because of their coaching staff, but 2, because the quarterback that everybody worried about is there and playing as well as he can. And they're still not fully healthy. You let off with that one. And when they get some of those guys back, reinforcements, it's going to be tough because this young defensive line, all the names we talk about, well, now it's Byron Young. We've talked about all the other young guys. Byron Young is leading the way on that young defense. He already has 8 pressures in true dropback situations, but he's not the only one. Verse and Kobe have 6 apiece, and the team has 32 in true dropback situations, not total pressures, through 2 games. Yikes. I don't care who you are. When you're coming up against that kind of buzzsaw on the defensive line, you're not going to have a lot of time. You're going to make some of the wrong decisions. The defense is going to capitalize. If they keep you from scoring, you're not going to keep up with the Rams. The Eagles, I'm with you. I think people are probably throwing a little bit of dirt on them too early. This is Kevin Patullo kind of feeling it out. Yes, the offense, especially in the passing game, feels, I would say, stale. It's not very creative. There's not a lot of easy outs. Goddard's missed a little time. That means they don't have that sort of bailout in the middle of the field that they really like. And he hasn't really schemed up any sort of easy completions. It's as if he's sort of handing the game plan to Jalen Hurts and saying, hey, you're a veteran. You're really smart. I know you can do it. Just play on hard mode from week 1. Just go for it. And the result has been not great in the passing game. Again, they're still winning. The run game is great, but as defensive coordinators sort of build a bit on Patullo and shut off the few things that have been successful in the passing game, if he doesn't adapt, then it becomes a problem. But 2 weeks into the season, I'm not worrying about that yet.
I feel like if there was ever a time to really establish A.J. Brown early in the game, especially vertically, this is it. Because the way the Rams are built, which is suffocating you with a really strong run game. They have a really efficient play action pass game. They'll be able to control the ball. And if they get up 1 score on you, with that pass rush, it's I don't want to say game over, but pretty darn close to game over. And so the key is to kind of put them on the back foot, right? Make them with a banged up offensive line have to go into their true drop back pass game, which we know Stafford can do, but he's also A, immobile, and B, already came into the year with kind of a sore back, so we don't think he can move really well. So let's kind of take that advantage away from them. Take the run game off the table. Take the play action game off the table. Put them in shotgun. Put them into true drop back pass situations. Because this is a team that when they're under center, their pass rate is fairly low. They mostly run the ball, and when they're in shotgun, their pass rate's fairly high. They mostly throw the ball. So try to make them predictable by getting a fast start on offense. That means going down the field with A.J. Brown. Get him involved. Get him engaged. Again, Ahkello Witherspoon is out. He's on IR. So do they have any other DBs on the roster that we think even have a prayer of matching up with him one-on-one outside? I'm not sure they do. And if we really want to take that pass rush, off the table, if we can get out to I'm not even asking for a 14-point lead. Give me a 7 to 10 point lead in the first quarter and a half. If it's, let's say it's 17-7 with 2 minutes to go in the second quarter going into the halftime situation, I feel pretty good about that. If we can go into halftime 17-7, well, if we're scoring 17 points in the first half, we're fine anyway. Let's say 13-3, make it even more manageable. If we're going up by 10 points into halftime, and we're taking that run game off the table and we're forcing them to drop back and throw, and we have to make them deal with Jalen Carter, we have to make them deal with Nolan Smith, now all of a sudden I feel a lot better about it. But if the Rams are hanging around, right, it's a 7-point or less game just before halftime, and let alone if it's after halftime and it's a 7-point game, now I'm getting nervous about it. Now I'm getting real nervous about it. So for me, it's all about getting a fast start. And, on the flip side, I'll take the opportunity to dive into how the Eagles can kind of keep the Rams pinned down early and give their offense room to go up quickly. I mentioned that, their shotgun versus under center run pass splits are very, very evenly, or not evenly divided, very dramatically divided, right? This is an offense, above all with the Rams, that has remained patient, and their patience has been by far their biggest virtue. So on second down, specifically second and long, which is when you expect teams to panic and throw the ball. They have the 6th highest run rate on 2nd and long, which is then bore out to be the 3rd highest success rate for plays on 2nd and long, meaning they set up 3rd and manageable. If you stop them on 1st down, which typically is going to be a 1st down run from under center because they're the Rams, they do not panic. They stay patient. They run the ball again. They get into 3rd and manageable, and then they trust Stafford to move the chains, which generally he's been able to do that so far this year. And what that patience and commitment to running the ball from under center on 1st and 2nd down has led to is a highly effective play action pass game, which I mentioned before. They lead the league so far in under center play action passes. 21 of their 24 under center play action passes have been on early downs. It's crossing routes, it's seam routes, like that's where the explosives are coming from. So if I'm the Eagles and my goal is get out to an early lead, get AJ involved, but more importantly, pin the Rams down so they can't go blow for blow with us and get the ball back quickly, it comes down to stopping the run early on early downs, and more importantly, doing it from 2 high safety structures. They have to do it from a light box, which means Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter, like they got to do what they did at Georgia, which is what Georgia did. They stopped the run from a light box, and they have to dominate inside because it's going to be even numbers. And you use these quarter structures behind it to cut the crossing routes, to have good leverage on these seam routes, shut down the play action pass game from too high, try to stop the run from even numbers, and then you can get them where you want them, which is 3rd and 7. Now we're in shotgun. They got a banged up offensive line. Now you got to block us. And I don't think they can do that. So to me, that is key. It's easier said than done, but the blueprint is there.
Be interesting to see if they're successful with that, because I think they can be from a talent standpoint. Certainly their secondary lines up well for that strategy. I want to see McVay's adjustment, because I think they will come out and try and do as they have done. I do not see him morphing into, hey, we're going to whip it all over the yard today. He does that a couple of times a year. I don't see Stafford with 50 pass attempts in this one. And if I do, it's bad for the Rams. So it'll be interesting to see the adjustment. But from the Philadelphia perspective, they've got a lot of guys that are very effective. It's almost an all-star defense at this point. And the matchups, for the most part, if you're going down who's covering who, I'm leaning towards Philadelphia in most of them, and Vic has been employing those guys, I would say, very efficiently on defense, and they can make it tough for the Rams pretty early. Puka's going to get his, and this reminds me of game plans when you're going in against a team where they have one guy that is the guy that's going to get his every single week. DK was there for a while with the Seahawks, and it was like, look, if DK gets 100 yards and no touchdowns, we probably still win. So we're going to let him get his in the middle of the field. We're going to, bend but not break. We're going to clamp down in the red zone on him, particularly double if we need to. And it seems like Philadelphia's got a multitude of defenders they can mix and match on Puka to say, look, we're not going to try and keep you under 50 yards. We're not going to try and keep you under 5 catches necessarily. As long as you don't come out of this thing with 2 touchdowns or 190 yards, we're probably going to win. If Puka gets 120 yards and a touchdown, I don't really see the rest of the Rams keeping pace with the Eagles both on defense, and then when they flip the field, get back on offense. They've been effective enough. Yep, they're going to face that pass rush. Rams are on the road in this one. I think the Eagles probably have enough to win this one.
Well, the key is if they do, put a cap on Puka, where again, it's Puka, he's going to get production. But as long as it's not like one of those like, oh my God, he single-handedly beat us kind of games.
Right.
The key is, can Devontae beat Quinyon one-on-one outside? And going back to this 2nd down discussion, again, the Rams are going to try to run it from under center on early downs. I think the best way to probably handle them is the same way, that Vic Fangio handled McVay in 2018 when he was with the Bears, right? Like, you play quarters behind it. They played base into 11 personnel back then. I don't think they have to do that with Philly. And they let Akeem Hicks just dominate the guards, and they cut the crossing routes off play action, and bada bing, bada boom, you win the game, right? So like this is another Vic versus McVay rematch, and what Vic has done in the past, I still think can work here. But the wrinkle, to tie it all together, is on 2nd down this year, the Eagles have played a lot of man coverage. And if you're going to try to stop the run from single high against this team on early downs, I think they're going to play man, not cover 3. If they play cover 3, it probably won't go well for them. So I think that's also kind of been Vic's thinking too, of like, why am I going to play cover 3 when I have the DBs to play man? I'm just going to play man if I want to go single high. So how I'm thinking this works is Quinyon versus Devontae one-on-one outside. May the best man win. We'll see if he can. And then Puka, who's generally going to be lined up inside for them, he's running the seams, he's running the crossers, he's doing all the Puka stuff. If we're playing cover 1 lurk, we're bringing one of those safeties down from the too high look pre-snap. He's playing in the middle of the field. He's cutting those crossers, which usually is going to be DeJean on Puka anyway. So that's how we put a cap, a real hard cap over Puka. And at that point, Stafford's like, all I can really do is trust Devontae versus Quinyon. And Devontae started off hot this year, but it's like Quinyon's no slouch. That's probably a top 10 corner out there. So I don't think it's crazy to say that Quinyon versus Devontae matchup specifically, especially in these man coverage situations, which we know we're going to get, that could be the difference between the Rams moving the ball and not moving the ball. And therefore the Rams keeping pace with the Eagles or not keeping pace with the Eagles. All that to say, that might be the game right there, Quinyon versus Devontae.
It's the get out of jail free card for the Rams. It's going to be what opens up the rest of that offense and makes that cap have to be pulled off Puka. Is a cap over Puka a kappa? I guess it is. But, that's the thing that can lever their offense into more options. If they can't get that, or they only get it, say, 3 out of 10 times, it's not going to be enough to keep pace in general. And, Vic's going to be able to say, you haven't run me out of it yet. I'm going to keep running it because, again, Puka's getting his yards, but you're not necessarily getting the points you need. Nothing else is really going your way. It doesn't feel like they kind of have a third punch to go to necessarily on that Rams offense. Kyron's going to have a long day against that defensive line. They're going to need that can opener. And if they don't get it, it could be a very long day for the Rams.
Are you picking the Eagles in this one?
I'm going to pick the Eagles in this one. I think they have enough firepower to keep rolling. Could the Rams beat them? Sure. It would come down to, I think, turnovers probably created by the defensive line of the Rams because they have the ability to do that. But you're going against the Eagles' offensive line, one of the best offensive lines in the entire league. You're going against Jalen Hurts, who typically hasn't panicked. He hasn't been extraordinary, but he hasn't put his team in bad spots either. It's, again, your margin for error here is really small. It's going to be a freak play. It's going to be something that doesn't happen very often, somebody that doesn't normally fumbling, something like that for an extra possession. Other than that, the margins are pretty thin for the Rams. Can they do it? Sure, but I think percentages say Eagles probably get it done.
I'll go Eagles as well, and more specifically, building our underdog entry throughout the day, I'm going Jalen Hurts higher than 195.5 passing yards, because how often can you get a quarterback under 200? Again, I think this is the week they really make it a point to throw. This same narrative happened last season. Like, people forget this. When the whole AJ Brown, our passing game needs to improve thing happened, and everybody was dogging on the Eagles for not throwing, and then Jalen came out and I think he dropped a 300-yard game immediately. So obviously Jalen Hurts can throw. We know he can throw. He has receivers. He has, excellent pass protection when all of his guys are healthy. Well, I shouldn't say excellent. They actually weirdly struggled on pass pro last year, but I trust Lane and Jordan, and I trust their guys to win one-on-one against this Rams D-line. If anybody could, it's them. I think there is a Jalen Hurts explosion game brewing, and this is probably it, if I had to guess. So, which ultimately means it probably won't happen, but hey, we'll see.
It's going to be best on best. If you're a fan of trench play in general, look, Rams D-line on Eagles O-line, just make the popcorn, sit back, crack yourself open your favorite beverage, and enjoy, because that is extremely high-level NFL play on both sides of the line.
Yeah, the issue with the Eagles pass pro last year wasn't even them like winning straight up. It was like handling stunts and blitzes. And, the Rams, they haven't had to do a whole lot of that because they have a great defensive line. So again, the matchup as far as like what hurts the Eagles passing game isn't necessarily what the Rams lean into. Maybe they will. I don't know. We'll see. But like talent wise, they're going to be fine. All right. Third game on the docket. The other Super Bowl contenders playing against each other this week. Baltimore, Detroit. Well, EJ, my concern about the Lions offense lasted 6 days. I think they're okay.
Yeah, they are okay. They found their stride in week 2 against a very bad Bears team. Let's be honest. The Bears are one of the worst teams in the NFL right now, and that's just not sour grapes from a Bears fan. Statistically, in a lot of key categories, they are 31st or 32nd. They are not a good football team right now. But they're going to find out, the Lions that is, that the Ravens are a whole different animal. The Ravens are leading the league in scoring at over 40 points per game. Lions know what it's like to be that team. They're not that team this year, but they've been there in the past. And Lamar is playing at what I can only describe as a stratospheric level. He is 4th in yards per attempt. He has the 3rd highest average depth of target. He is tied for 1st in TDs. He is 1st in the NFL passer rating by, get this, 11 points. 136.6 to Herbert's 127.8. Like, he's lapping the field, folks. He is a quarterback in full command of an offense, and it is awesome to watch. When I talked about the trench play in the previous game being elite NFL stuff, watch Lamar play quarterback right now. It is a treat. And Derrick Henry is right behind him. He is 2nd in yards per attempt at 6.6 per carry, and he is 1st in yards after contact per attempt at 4.66, which means he's getting half a first down after he gets touched every single time. That is ridiculous production. Those two guys in the same backfield is hardly fair. The defense has shown some weakness for the Ravens, particularly the scoring defense. They're 25th, giving up 29 points a game, but most of that came in a rough week 1. They rolled in week 2 and only allowed 17. I know it's the Browns, folks, but they did show signs of shaking off the week 1 rust and going, okay, that's week 1. We're better than that, which was, I know for Ravens fans, a little bit of a hold your breath moment.
Not even just that's week 1. It's like, oh no, that's Josh Allen week 1.
Right.
Like, yeah, sorry, that's not going to happen every week.
Yeah, we didn't have our ducks in a row, and I know everybody in Ravens land was like, oh no, here we go again. We're going to be bad on defense for the first half of the season. No, I think they're rebounding much more quickly. They'll get their test against Detroit, though, because they did find their legs. The Lions found their legs on offense. And, Baltimore is going to have to find a way to deal with Jameson Williams, because Jameson Williams at the end of last season, for those who were paying attention, yes, he took a long time to get going, but he took off at the end of last season, and he's just continuing that ascent. Last week he had 2 receptions for, wait for it, 108 yards and a touchdown. And here's the bad news. It easily could have been way worse. The Bears busted a coverage in the first half. I think it was second quarter, and they just missed him. He was open by like 12 yards, and it would have been another score, and it would have been over 50 yards. So we would have been looking at 3 catches for 160-some-ish yards and 2 touchouts. Like, it could have been. To be fair,
even when the Bears didn't bust coverages, he was still open by 12 yards. So it's not like it made much of a difference.
They had no plan for him whatsoever. So I would expect that the Ravens are looking at that and going, yeah, we're not going to let him run free in the secondary. And they're going to be challenged to do that with their cornerback situation. Marlon Humphrey left last week's game with a groin. He's, day to day at this point. I think he'll probably play. Again, we're recording this on a Wednesday. We don't know. We don't have the latest injury reports. If he doesn't play, it is going to be a problem because of the multitude of targets that the Lions have. If he does, I think they're going to be able to find a way to shift coverage. And the Lions pass rush is going to have to find a way to pick it up. It's Hutch versus the world again. The team only has 11 total pressures in true pass sets through 2 games. Now, go back to what I just said about the Rams. They have 30 plus. I I know it feels like just the record we keep playing here, but when Hutch is in there, he's very effective. He's picked up a fair number of pressures in pass set situations. The Lions still don't have anybody else to help him out, and they're going to need it.
When I was looking at the Chiefs' defensive line performance, and I saw that they were third worst in the NFL, and at least in pass rush win rate, and then they were, I think it was like eighth worst in pressure rate or something like that. I looked at the teams that were around them, and they were the ones that I expected, right? It was Miami, it was the Saints. I saw the Lions there, and I was like, uh-oh. I was like, they've invested a lot in pass rush, and they're still there. Again, it's only a couple weeks into the season, but I was like, uh-oh, that's not good, because it's hard enough to handle Lamar even when you do have a good pass rush. But if Lamar's allowed to sit there in a clean pocket, like, you think 136 is a good passer rating, like, he's going to be perfect if he's not under pressure at all. Like, historically speaking, when he is not under pressure, he is literally the best quarterback in the NFL. So they have to figure out something, whether it's bringing blitzes, like reckless amounts of blitzes. Like, they got to do something. Maybe take inspiration from what Aaron Glenn did late in the year last year. Because so far, like, that is the Achilles heel for this team, is like not being able to get pressure. At least Achilles heel for them defensively is not being able to get pressure. And then offensively, I also don't think this is a particularly great matchup for their run game. Because if you're looking at how this team ran the ball, or rather didn't run the ball week 1 against the Packers, we spent a long time talking about how their young trio, or interior trio, with Tate Ratledge, Christian Mahogany, and Glasgow at center was really struggling to kind of uproot these Green Bay defensive tackles, and like they were getting just annihilated in space by Edge Cooper, and they couldn't run the ball as a result. And then you go against the Bears, and I thought they made some really nice adjustments, i.e. we're not really going to try to go up the middle because we don't think we can. And instead they got Jameer to the edge over and over and over again and just kind of went around the problem. They popped a big run on a crunch concept, which is really more just about kind of creating seams than blowing people off the ball. But the other big runs that Jameer had, especially the left side, it was, all right, we're reducing a receiver split on that side. He's going to crack down. He's going to create traffic. And if all we have to do is just make the linebackers kind of, banana peel around the traffic, they're not going to be able to catch Jameer to the edge, which is what happened over and over and over again. His average yards before contact per attempt was 6.5 before contact. So that was just a good way of them realizing, like, we can't go up the middle. We have to go around. We don't think they can match us, speed for speed to the edge, and they were right. And at the same time, cover your ears, EJ, the Bears secondary had a 29% missed tackle rate in this game. Like, they had more missed tackles in that one game than the Ravens have had in the secondary the entire year. And in fact, the Ravens season-long missed tackle rate in their secondary is less than half that. They only have 2 missed tackles between their corners and safeties combined. So if your game plan to run the ball against this Ravens defense is to go up the middle, I'm still not sure their young interior trio is going to be able to do that. And if your adjustment to that is to just go around the problem like they did against the Bears, I don't think that's going to work very well either, because the Ravens can actually tackle. So run game wise, I worry about this for Detroit. Pass rush wise, I worry about this for Detroit. And so if this turns into a situation where it's, okay, we're a one-dimensional team that is playing from behind, trying to match score for score, it might look like week 1 again. And week 1 was not pretty. So I think there are certain teams that the Lions can absolutely eviscerate. Unfortunately, Chicago is one of them. I don't think Baltimore is one of them, just like Green Bay wasn't. So this could be fairly one-sided. I hope it's not, because I think these two teams are really fun. I want good football, but this has potential to kind of get away from them a little bit earlier.
I think it probably lands somewhere in the middle. I don't think it'll be quite as suffocating as it was against Green Bay, as much as it pains me to say that. Green Bay is a very balanced team right now. But I think it'll be closer to that, certainly, than any kind of experience you saw against the Bears for multiple reasons. The other thing that works against the Lions run game is, that Roquan Smith guy, he's pretty good. So that's a real problem. And, if the Lions pass rush, going back to Hutch versus the world, doesn't work, the Lions have got a serious problem because Terrion Arnold, look, he got called out by his defensive coordinator. He's giving up a reception every 5.4 coverage snaps. He has an NFL passer rating against when he's targeted of 128.5. That's basically a free completion. So if you can't get home and you got a corner that can't cover, Lamar's going to find that guy. He is a quarterback that's going to spread the ball around, and that's just, you got to have one of those two things working, and right now the Lions kind of don't have either of those things working at a high level, so I'm going to lean Baltimore in this one. I think they are a more complete team. I think they have the quarterback that's playing at a higher level, and they match up pretty well against the things that the Lions want to do. So if you can't get that going on offense, then you got to go to the other foot on defense, and you've got some holes there as well that the other team's going to exploit. I'm with you. It might be a long day.
Yeah, I'm going Baltimore as well. And to reflect that, my addition to our underdog entry is Jared Goff lower than 265.5 passing. It was actually a higher number than I expected, considering the matchup here. So, again, is it possible that he really pops off because they're behind and he has to throw? It's possible. Matchup-wise, that's a tough one. So lower than 265.5. And that brings us to our final game on the docket. Certainly one that might be the most contentious in the comments if I had to gauge based on Twitter responses to my points. Texans, Jags. I want to start off by saying, I do think the Jags are going to win this game. I'm leading with the pick because I want that to frame the discussion here. I think the Jags are a better team than the Texans right now. I think Trevor Lawrence is playing better football than CJ Stroud right now. I would be very surprised if Houston doesn't fall to 0-3. I'd be very surprised if Jacksonville is not just 2-1 after Sunday, but also, potentially pushing for the division crown, by like week 10, week 11. So far, based on what I've seen, that's the best team in the South. Even over Indy, because I think Indy has some very real flaws that their run game is covering up for right now, i.e. their pass rush also isn't very good. And I'm still not 100% sure how much I want to trust Daniel Jones to keep this going the entire year. But Jacksonville is the most well-rounded team, and I think their quarterback is playing very well. Maybe not very well. I think their quarterback is playing okay, but the team around him is playing very well. That's probably a better way to put it. All that being said, my point with Trevor Lawrence is that he is being paid to play not just okay. He is being paid to play very good football. And he, as far as accuracy is concerned, has been very spotty with ball placement so far. Yes, they do lead the league in drops. I went through and I looked at every single drop so far this year. 3 of them were because of bad ball placement. And this is an issue that we talked about in week 1. He misplaced a few screens, made it tougher to catch and tougher to get yards after the catch than it should have been. Placement was spotty week 1. It was overall better week 2. But still, there were some mental mistakes, like the really bad pick in the end zone. Hell, he very easily could have thrown 3 picks in this game. And I think he is playing at an acceptable level to win games with. But I think if you're looking at the team around him, their excellent run game, which truly is excellent, and their absolutely voracious defense are covering up for Trevor's lack of elevating the team. And I think the things that are really doing the most work for Jacksonville right now, i.e. their pass rush and their run game, are not necessarily working because Trevor is playing good football. I think Trevor is playing okay football, but their run game is so good and their defense is so good that they're 1-1. They should be 2-0. Truly, they should be 2-0. And this, honestly, if Trevor is accurate this year, or rather more accurate as the year goes on, they could probably be 12-5. 13-4. I think this team is complete enough to do that. They're talented enough to do that. Liam Cohen is a good enough coach to do that. But until I see him improve in his ball placement from down to down and not have one errant pass per quarter, I get worried about if they can really achieve their ceiling, right? And again, he's making a lot of money. Top quarterbacks, you can get one bad pass a half. You can't get one bad pass a quarter. And it doesn't sound like a big deal, but I promise you it is, because on average, you get 32 dropbacks a game. A quarter of those, for Jacksonville are going to be screens. They're calling 8 screens a game. So those are 8 manufactured completions, and which leaves 24? So 24 true dropbacks in a game. You can't have 1 out of every 6 of those being an errant throw. You just can't, because that's how you start in 2nd and 7. You miss a guy on a deep cross. It could have been an explosive play. Instead, you're 3rd and 7. Maybe you get 4 yards, 4th and 3, punt it away. Like, that costs you drives. That costs you field position. That costs you points. And if you're not capitalizing on those opportunities, all of a sudden, a pick in the end zone matters a hell of a lot more. A bogus DPI on Travis Hunter matters a hell of a lot more. BTJ melting down and wilting against contact matters a hell of a lot more if you're missing those throws. The quarterback's job is to elevate the team enough so that all that other shit doesn't hurt you as much. But if the quarterback is not elevating the team, all of a sudden everything else is the reason why you lose games, right? So, yes, he has played better than CJ Stroud. But my bar for Trevor Lawrence, making a lot of money, is not be better than CJ Stroud. My bar for Trevor Lawrence is, we're paying you to make an AFC championship run here. We brought in a new coach. We gave you a bunch of weapons. The defense is playing well. Do the fucking thing. And he's not. And they lost a very preventable game. I understand it wasn't entirely his fault. He wasn't the reason they lost. He also wasn't the reason they won. You can't lose to Jake Browning when you're making that much money. I'm sorry, you can't. Especially when your defense is getting 2.5 picks a game. They're leading the league in quarterback hits. They're number 1 in time to pressure at 2.21 seconds. Your defense is getting pressure in 2.21 seconds. Win the fucking game, Trevor. I understand it's not all his fault. He still has to be the reason they win. And until he elevates himself to that level, I will be concerned. I really will. And Jags fans, because I root for the Texans, Jags fans are like, well, he's just a Houston fan. He's talking shit. And it's no, dude. It's week 2 and I'm already dead inside. This is not about Texans versus Jags. I'm not mad at the Jags. I'm mad for Jags fans because I know what this team can be. This is not division rivalry stuff. This is me being frustrated on your behalf because I know what this team can do. The Chiefs are 0-2. You got a whole bunch of other AFC contenders that are on shaky ground right now. If there was ever an opportunity to take control of the AFC South, to capitalize on this being a really shaky division, make a push for the 1 seed, have the playoffs go through Jacksonville for the first time since 2017, if there was ever an opportunity to do it, it's right the fuck now. So he's got to do it. It's what he's getting paid to do. I have a whole lot of problems with Houston. I'll get to those in a second, but for now, EJ, let's talk Jacksonville.
The reason that the dialogue surrounding Trevor is difficult is the highs are there, and you see very high-level quarterback play from him, and the lows are also there. You mentioned the bad interception in the end zone, and there's not much room in the middle. And it feels like you read my notes again this week because I said Trevor has to hit the easy ones and do it on target so his guys have a chance to run, because sometimes he does that. And as you said, it was better in week 2 than it was in week 1, but it's not consistent enough. And quarterbacking in the NFL is about being consistent. And then if you want to elevate your own play consistently, good. But you can't be great and then awful, and then great, and then middling, and then middling, and then middling, and then great, and then awful in a high leverage situation. You, again, are not going to be the reason that your team wins. And Trevor is in a position, drafted highly, paid highly, second contract, surrounded with weapons, brought in a, I would say, quarterback-friendly head coach who's had success last couple of stops, really elevating offenses. All the pieces are there. And Trevor has to find consistent play first and then consistently good play. And he'll have great plays. And again, Screenshot Warriors are going to grab those and say, see, he's better than you think he is. And on some plays, absolutely. And that's where we want him to be more often. And you also have to reduce the other end. You can't just sweep those under the rug and say, yeah, well, these make up for it. They don't. They balance out. And you need that balance to start in the middle. And for great quarterbacks who are going to be winning divisions, hopefully, rise from there. And that's what makes the discussion so difficult, is you see it. It's not that he was brought in to do that and he never does it. He does it, but then he'll do the boneheaded thing and put his guys in a bad spot, hang guys out over the middle on balls that are, again, behind a wide receiver. He mechanically, we know he can hit it, but he doesn't. And then the offense starts to break down because receivers are losing trust. Maybe they're not reaching for balls. We saw it with BTJ. We went into that on a previous podcast. We don't need to do it again. But he needs to find that consistency to, again, leverage what is a very good team. You mentioned the pass rush, 29 pressures in true dropback situations in 2 games. Josh Hines-Allen has 10 of those by himself. So against the Texans offensive line that, again, close your ears. I know you're not feeling great. They have been an adventure in pass pro this year is the nicest way I can put it. Josh Hines-Allen could have a huge day here. The screen game, which I'm just going to lump in with the running game, the rebirth of Travis Etienne, Houston better have a plan for that. I mean, I think they have the players to counter it, but that's working. So when you have a base thing, we talked about it at the opening of this podcast, what can they do well? Well, the Jags do several things well. I'm going to say run the ball, and I'm saying screen game goes with that, and then rush the passer. They're doing both of those things really well. That's enough to get you going, and then you need your quarterback and all those weapons to elevate it from there. But they have the baseline, and I think that's what's so frustrating is it's not just like, oh, he's got to play hero ball and bail everybody out. That's a very tough position for any quarterback to be in. CJ Stroud's in that position right now. He's having to do everything kind of by himself, and it's not working out great because he's not getting protection. Trevor's not in that spot, and that's why we get frustrated for Jags fans, which is this can be so much more. We see it all. All the pieces are there. You can bake a really good cake out of this, like a division crown cake out of this. Don't waste it. And that's when you see those dirted screens, when you see there was late window throws in week 2 where it was like, so what I mean there is on a crossing route, you have 2 windows. You have an early window and a late window, usually when you're passing a coverage player. And if you are anticipating him coming out of the break, your receiver coming out of the break with a win, you throw it in the early window. And if he's not separating right there and he's going to run away from him, say in man coverage, you hit the second window. And there were late throws and missed windows. If you're late in the second window, now you're starting to get into either the boundary or another coverage player if you're talking about certain zones. And you just like, come on, man, throw it. The early window's open. Don't wait for the second window because bad things can happen. And sure enough, bad things happen. Or it gets thrown behind and then it's a tougher catch, or the receiver takes a hit, or whatever else. You just need to run this operation on offense at a tight enough tolerance, and you have all the pieces to do it. And if you do, this team's going to be really, really good.
And again, the reference that I have for what this system looks like when it's run at its highest level is Baker. So it's like I know what this offense can do when everything is on time and on target, and like guys are when the ball is put in the right spot for them to get great yards after catch opportunities, like that's what they could be, right? That is what they could be. On the flip side, defensively, I do want to give a little bit of praise, for what they've done so far. This defensive line is so good at running stunts. They're only 13th highest in blitz rate, but they lead the league in unblocked pressures because of how good they are at running stunts and getting guys free. They have taken advantage of, the early season trend that we always see, which is offensive lines that don't know how to pick up stunts yet because, practice time is compressed in the offseason. Guys aren't getting a lot of reps together, at least like they used to. There's less preseason games. There's less snaps for starters in the preseason. So then you get to the first few weeks and teams are running crazy ass stunts and blitzes at you and you don't know what to do. Like, they are really good at getting guys free and getting guys free quickly. Again, not being a crazy blitz heavy team, but still leading the league in time to pressure at 2.21 seconds is nuts. So they've done a really good job affecting the quarterback and hitting the quarterback. They're second in quarterback hits. And when you speed up the quarterback's clock and you make them nervous, they make mistakes. And this secondary contests everything. Like absolutely everything. 5 picks in 2 games. They are second in forced incompletions as well. So it's a really aggressive defense. I wish they were a little bit better on third down. I wish they were a little bit better in the red zone. But other than that, like, they are just annoying to play against. So this team's really close to being really good. They shouldn't be 1-1, but I do think that they will be 2-1. And then on the flip side, we got Houston.
I was going to say, do you actually want to skip that or you want to talk about it?
It's shorter.
Yeah,
for my own sake, it's shorter. Speaking of struggling quarterbacks, CJ Stroud, he played well in week 1, despite being under siege, which most teams are going to be against the Rams. Week 2 was not pretty. All right. Again, 7 off-target incompletions against the Bucs alone. That's 1 less than Trevor had in the first 2 weeks combined. Like that, the only player who's had more than that in a single game so far is Mahomes this year, who did 7 and then 8. So if you think Mahomes has looked rough this season, that's exactly how Stroud looked against Tampa. He was inaccurate. The pressure was really, really getting to him and causing mistakes. I think you can definitely put that loss on CJ. I think a lot of people would say, like, oh, if the defense just sacked Baker on that 4th and 10, they shouldn't have even been in that position in the first place. Like, they really shouldn't have. Like, it should not have come down to, can you get Baker Mayfield on the ground on 4th and 10? Like, the defense did its job. They repeatedly got pressure. You know, Bucs offensive line was banged up, and they paid for it throughout the night. It shouldn't have even been that close. But CJ didn't have a good game. Through 2 weeks, 43% pressure rate allowed. That is unacceptable. It's the 9th highest total in the league. Keep in mind, not the worst, right? Like, people say it's the worst offensive line. It's not the worst. It's bad. It's not the worst. Strangely, what is worse, though, is their pressure rate given up actually goes up when they're running play action. And I looked at a cut up of all their pressures given up on play action, and a lot of it is just their interior is weak. And teams are teeing off, and they're playing the run on the way to the quarterback because they know their guards and center can't hold up. That's been an issue. So I don't know what the fix is other than just get better players. But when CJ is given clean pockets, which is 57% of the time, he has to be more accurate, or this team is not going to go anywhere. They're already 0-2. They're probably going to be 0-3. And at that point, like you said, 2% to make the playoffs. It wouldn't be the first time I've seen an AFC South team do that, but I mean, it's basically season over. Like, they have to win this game. They have to win this game. And to do that, CJ has to play better.
Yeah, my notes for offense, the same. CJ has to get some protection. They have to figure out a way. People say, how? I'm like you. There's not a lot else you could do if your guys aren't holding up, and those are the guys you have in the lineup. But when he does get protection, and he is getting it sometimes, as you mentioned, this is not the worst offensive line in the league. He has to hit those ice-cold shots downfield that we are used to. And he did not. His overthrows looked a lot like Mahomes' overthrow of Tyquan Thornton. They were very, very similar last week. And right now he is 28th in adjusted completion percentage, just above Cam Ward, who has also had less than desirable surroundings for playing quarterback in Tennessee. So, results are very dependent on the rest of the offense, but when he does get a little bit of protection, he's got to pay it off. And we're used to seeing him doing that, and then he just hasn't. So it feels a little bit unfamiliar. On defense, like we talked about the screen game for Jacksonville, and they do need to shut that down, specifically Trevor Etienne. So they have linebackers and secondary to do it. I would imagine Kamari Lassiter and Toto are going to be key pieces in that effort, and they're very good at it. So they have the tools. We'll see if they're able to execute that. Interesting little side note, side watch, side bet for this Sunday. I'm wondering if they single cover BTJ until he proves he can beat them and use that free defender that's not in a double coverage, which you typically would have on a guy like BTJ to leverage other matchups or play near to the line of scrimmage to counter the screen game or whatever else. And just basically say, hey, until you pop a couple of good ones, we're gonna cover you straight up. A, because we have the secondary players to do it, and B, because you had a really bad week 2. We're gonna see if you can rebound from that, if you're going to rebound from that, and if not, we're gonna profit as a defense having a defender that we typically wouldn't have available to us. And that's going to make things difficult for Jacksonville in a whole different way. Not certainly an expectation they would have had early in the year. They would have been expecting at least cover 1.5 for BTJ. And if you can basically straight up man him up and not worry about him killing you, that is advantage Houston, at least in those particular matchups.
Well, Derek Stingley has, been given shadow duty so far. He shadowed Devontae in week 1. He shadowed Mike in week 2. I have to imagine he's going to shadow BTJ in week 3. And, they'll take their chances with Lassiter against Travis Hunter on the other side, or De'Ami Brown or whoever, which Kamari's a good corner. He could probably handle that as well. The real question that I have is similar to you. Like, can these linebackers cover ETN out of the backfield? Can they cover the tight ends? Can the safeties cover either of those? Like, the screen game to me is really kind of like the make or break for this Jags offense, just because Houston is so uniquely qualified to handle their receivers outside. So it's going to be everything else. And we know that this team calls a lot of screens. If Liam Cohen gets ETN moving out of the backfield, either just running him down the field or getting him active in the screen game, if they pop a couple explosives that way, that could be the difference here as well. So it's a really interesting matchup as far as Houston's defense against Jacksonville's offense. But ultimately, I think I trust Jacksonville's offense to beat Houston's defense more than I trust Houston's offense to beat Jacksonville's defense. And ultimately, that's probably going to be the unfortunate difference in this game. So I am picking Jacksonville. Like I said, are you also picking Jacksonville?
Yep. I'm picking the Jags in this one.
And to round out our underdog entry, our fourth and final pick for this entry, I have Travis Etienne higher than half a rushing or receiving touchdown. Doesn't matter what kind he gets. Obviously, he's going to catch a lot of the backfield. If he just scores, if he gets in the paint at all, that counts. So to recap the entire entry, top to bottom, we have Wan'Dale Robinson higher than 44.5 receiving yards. We have Jalen Hurts higher than 195.5 passing yards. We have Jared Goff lower than 265.5 passing. And we have Travis Etienne just scoring in general. How do you feel about that one each?
The two if I had to pick two to be worried about, it would be Hurts going over and Goff going under. I think both of those things are likely to happen. If they don't, it's because Goff hits a couple big balls to Jameson Williams. We talked about that. And if Hurts doesn't have the explosion that we're hoping he does to the outside wide receivers, his numbers have been pretty pedestrian, which is why that looks like a pretty decent total for him to be shooting at for the odds makers. It's our first one back with underdog. I think we get some luck because of that. So I'm excited about it.
Reminder, if you guys want to vote on shot of the week for our first of two shots next week, you can do so at our Patreon. We have a public poll on the Patreon. You don't have to be a patron to vote on it. But while you're there, if you want to become a patron and support the show directly, we'd appreciate that. I want to thank all of our EPs in our EP tier on Patreon. Fitzy, Connor, Liam, Mike, Jack, Major, Owen, Patrick, and Spencer. Appreciate you all once again. We'll be back on the Patreon. I don't know what day this is going live. I'm assuming it's going live on Thursday. Maybe it's going live on Friday. We'll have an additional bonus episode on the Patreon going over a few more games. That'll be live at some point before the Sunday games. And we'll see you back here on this channel next week on Tuesday. See you then.